Oh, hey everybody. Welcome. Welcome to Archetype. My name is Josh Herman, Chief Creative Officer here at Nomen, host of Archetype. I hope you all had a really excellent new year, Christmas, holidays. Hopefully everybody's staying safe and is healthy and happy. Welcome. Welcome to the stream. In case you've never been to the stream, my name is Josh Herman. I think I already said that twice, but welcome. I'm excited to be back. It's been a little bit nice to kind of have a little bit of a break and to kind of to separate away from doing artwork and kind of finish some stuff up. So welcome to the stream. If you've never been to the stream, you don't know why you're here, you don't know what this is, you just got a notification that Nomen is streaming and you're checking it out, welcome. This stream focuses on character design, specifically, hence the name Archetype. We're looking at the 12 archetypes created by Carl Jung. And at the end of last year, through November and December, we went through and we made our first character and our first archetype, which was the artist. So I'm going to show you guys some stuff pretty quickly. I'm going to jump over to my Zbrush. I'm going to share my screen and all that fun stuff so you can kind of see where we're at, what we ended with. And I do have a recap video, so I'll play that very shortly to get you up to speed on where we are. Just make sure everything is visible real quick so before I put this over here. Alright, I'm going to put this up here. There we are. So this is where the sculpture ended last year. So this is probably what many of you have seen. I'll show you a little bit. I did finish the hands. I did finish the character here, kind of getting this all set up. And this is what the end result was. And before I actually show you what the final is, I'm going to go ahead and actually just going to play the recap, and then that'll get us a preview into what we're doing. But hopefully everybody's doing well, and we're going to jump straight into the recap of how we got to the finished piece. And then today, our goal is to talk about what the next character is, do some reference, do some inspiration and some initial sketching on what the next piece is. And if you don't know, if you can't tell, or you haven't seen the title of the stream, the character we'll be doing for the next month or so will be the Caregiver. So the Caregiver is the next character. All right, let's watch this recap video. All right, so here we are. I had a couple last pieces to do on the sculpt. The first thing that I need to do is do these arms. So what I'm really doing is just going in and masking each one of these arms and working on them individually. Here you can see I'm just basically splitting it apart, adding some new shells and working on those little pieces here. So you're going to see me very quickly sculpt this arm. I'm just taking the existing base mesh and I'm just kind of, pumping it up a little bit. Nothing crazy. I did spend a little bit of time spending some time on the design and just kind of generally understanding what exactly was going on here, what kind of language that I would want to use, form language I would want to use, etc. And I'm just using some basic stuff that you've probably seen on the stream before if you've watched the stream. Actually designing what the end little paddles are here, that was kind of a fun thing to do to kind of understand what was going on. I didn't want to make it into one big piece, so I did make it into a couple here. And then I'm just going to sculpt in these details. As you've seen in the stream, or if you watched any other recap videos before, I could have taken this and I could have chunked it into a bunch of little pieces, and I could have made it into many, many different subtools, which probably would have made the result cleaner, but this is way faster. And for what the final result is going to be, and since I had now known that this was a lot of this was probably going to be in shadow, I don't really need to go crazy detailed and make it all these separate subtools. So just sculpting it like this is fine. I'm also only going to sculpt one side. Once I sculpt one side of this paddle arm, I'm actually going to move it over to the other side, and I'm going to use it to support the other character's leg. Because I thought you might see what the character is actually sitting on, I did go ahead and do a quick inner padding or some sort of thing here. You see me playing around with it a little bit, but basically all I'm doing is I did a poly group and I did a panel loops to separate the inside, and now I'm just masking, extruding, and putting that on the inside. And then I'm going to add a little decorative detail here on the outside. Rather than it having just be a really harsh seam, I decided to try to incorporate the seam into the design by just kind of sculpting the two shapes together so that it feels a little bit more natural. And you can see me just doing the final little bit of details here. And then we'll probably move on to the other arms pretty quickly. Oh, there was a terribly exploited mesh there. Sometimes that happens in ZBrush, and basically you just need to save and restart, which is probably what I did. So now you can see I'm starting to move the other arm around, and I just did a Z remesh of that, so now I kind of know what that will look like. Going ahead and doing an unwrap of that. I'm actually going to do that again later, but I've basically saved, that's why, because there was just a crash there. So I'm going to save this, move it all around, and just reposition this stuff around. I do end up using UV Master in Zbrush to UV all these pieces, and since the paddle arms, which are what we're working on right now, are going to be the same, I decided to just make one of those. The hands, I could have done the same and just UV'd them, one of them, and then mirrored it around and posed it, and that's probably what I should have done, but I didn't think about that in advance. I thought that I might sculpt them all separately, and then after I sculpted this hand here, I decided to just duplicate it around, so I kind of went the wrong order on that one, but that's fine. So I just spend a little bit of time sculpting the hand for these little hands that are going to be actually touching the character that's being created, and I'm just detailing. I'm just kind of coming in and trying to find some form language here. I like the faceted shape that was already here, and I already had a good sense of design for what the edges would be, so I'm replicating exactly what the other one, or close to what the other paddle arm had, and then I'm just going to duplicate that a little bit around that form language and create some lines and just general aesthetics to draw the eye up from the fingers down to the elbow. And then, like I said, once I'm done with this, I'm just going to go in and duplicate this, mirror it across, and repose it. And then even for the smaller, creepier, tinier hands that are on the inside, I'm going to do the same thing there. All right, so I'm going to quickly jump over this piece. I do end up sculpting this backrest here. You can see me breaking it apart into several different subtools. I'm just kind of pushing them together so they're appropriately sized, dynameshing them all so that they are now individual. You'll see that here, this is actually the final piece, the back piece there. And I'm going through and very quickly UV mastering all of these pieces. So now that backrest is done. It is UV'd, and I am now basically going through and exporting FBX files of highs and lows and of everything. It doesn't take very long. I'm going to go ahead and open up Maya, and I'm going to pop the backrest into Maya because I want it to be one texture sheet. I don't find that Zbrush is very good at being able to UV separate items and then put them on one texture sheet. So here you can see what I did is, this is where I had realized that I had made a mistake and I needed to UV the hand one time, then mirror it across rather than UV it several different times. It is going to make the bakes that I do a lot easier. So here you can see me basically going through the process and getting them all on the same sheet. And here I am laying out the backrest. I have some weird issues here which I encounter when I start getting into it, but you can see that now I've got the hands, the sculpted hands, the high-res hands, the low-res hands. They're in Marmoset. The great thing about doing this all in Marmoset is I can bake and texture in here, or at least do relatively simple textures. So I'm importing that all in here after I just did the bakes on the arms. I did the bakes on the backrest as well. You can see that's mostly completed there. And now I'm just setting up the texture projects, and since I used a smart material, which is what you see on the main shell of the body there, I'm just duplicating the smart material and I'm putting it on the textures that I have for the hands. So it's all getting the same treatment, even though it has different UVs. And now I'm just re-importing all the assets, and now I'm going to set up some camera views. As I'm doing this, I'm starting to do some test renders, playing with the lights and all that fun stuff. I found that I was having a weird issue where there was always grain in my renders, and I couldn't figure out what it was. So you'll see me on the left cranking up the samples to incredibly crazy high levels and doing a bunch of renders, trying to figure out what's going on. I later figured out that the problem was actually that I had grain set up in the camera, like where you can put on depth of field. I actually had grain set up there, which was a mistake. So I was cranking up the samples to remove the grain from my image, but I had been placing grain on the image as a post process, and that's why I couldn't remove it. So here I've gotten my nice renders out, and I'm just starting to paint in some of the atmospherics and some of the focus of the image. One thing that I also do at this point is Marmoset is rendering background images, so you'll see all of a sudden something else will pop up on the screen, and that basically means that my render was finished. So then I'm going to jump back to Marmoset, and when I'm in Marmoset, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to do another render, kick that off, and continue working in Photoshop, which is what you just saw. So now I'm working on 2 images at once in Photoshop, and this is a way that I really like to work, where once something is done, I like to get to the next phase, but I want the computer to keep working. I want to ideally do multiple processes at the same time. So right now I've got 2 images that I'm working on. I'm going to go ahead and clone out the thong that they were wearing in the scan, so that it looks a little bit more like the Matrix, I guess. And then I'm just adding some atmosphere, some lighting. And the nice thing about having this kind of be a series of images is that whatever I do with these adjustment layers or the masks or whatever style I'm doing, I can very quickly and easily copy that to other images. So once new images are coming out, like you're going to see probably in any second, I can copy the adjustment layers, I can bring them in, and they'll all kind of feel like they're a bit of the same. So there's another one. Just going back into Marmoset there, kicking off a new render, and while that render is going, I'm playing with some of the depth of field settings here. Once that render is going, I'm going to jump back into Photoshop and get it all set up. So you can see, again, I'm copying over, doing the exact same processes, just from a different angle, bringing in the adjustment layers. And this is a nice way when you have a scene that doesn't require a lot of post-process. It's a really good way and a really easy way to just get a lot of images or different angles or different things all at once. So, you know, this post-process here, once I had my scene set up, to get the final renders probably didn't take me more than an hour, maybe 2 hours to get everything that you're seeing in this short little clip. Oh, what's up? Now we're back. Sorry, I didn't mean to go straight to my Instagram. I was enjoying watching my video, which is weird. Anyways, I wanted to let you know that if you wanted to check out the images themselves, you can go ahead and feel free to check them out on my Instagram here. You can check them out here and go through the series. Or you can also check them out on my ArtStation, which is right here. Droids for Sale is my account. And you can also find them here if you want bigger, more widescreen images. So feel free to check those out. Love to hear comments and thoughts on the process. And then if you have any questions, please, as always, feel free to ask them. I would love to hear what you got. I see a lot of people in the chat. I see a lot of people coming back. I see Alex, Pedro, Peter. A lot of people are Esteban. Welcome back. Hello, everybody. Welcome. Hope you're all having a happy new year. Excited to be working on more stuff this year, more characters this year. So happy to have the first one done, but we're going to keep working on some more. So we're going to jump into Photoshop in a minute and get sketching. But like I said, if you want to check out the images themselves, you can check them out on ArtStation, or you can check them out on Instagram, depending on what you prefer. And then, of course, I'll show you very quickly. This was the ending sculpt that we had. I think if you had seen the stream before, this is not new news to you, but basically I just got in and sculpted some of these things a little bit more, like you could see on the stream. I didn't go to crazy amounts of detail on them, but that's kind of what those look like. We'll minimize that for a second, and then we'll go to our Marmoset scene. So then right now we're live on Marmoset. Marmoset is a real-time renderer, so you can pretty quickly adjust things. So what I was doing in that last clip, that recap video you saw, it's very, very easy and simple. And I'm really loving using real-time for making these kinds of renders, because it's just so fast. Like it's basically rendered now. And so I was just basically, you know, setting up a render, maybe saying I'll adjust this light here. I think I had pushed the light to like 8. And it's ray tracing here. So it pretty fast. Obviously I'm listening to music, I'm streaming, doing all kinds of things at one time. And so even with all of that, it is still incredibly fast. And so I'm really digging using this as a tool for concept, or just creating a multiple series of iterations. So pretty big fan of it. If anybody has questions on this character, please feel free to ask them. I'm probably going to close all these files once we get working on the Caregiver. So I'll open up the Caregiver and we'll start talking about that. But if you do have questions on basically the past month or so of streams, or any of the creation process of this character, feel free to ask, because we're going to move on and we're probably not going to talk about this character very much. So if you have questions, like I said, ask. In the meantime, we're going to jump over to my Trello board. As part of what this series is, as I see a couple questions coming in, thank you. This series was kind of built to show how I would actually work on something. And it's interesting when you think about that, because it's not just about doing the artwork, right? It's about doing all kinds of other things at the same time. So Trello is this here, and this is what we've been using. It's effectively putting a bunch of post-it notes on a board, a digital board. So you can come in here and you can create whatever you want, and that creates a card, and then I can move this card around, and I can come in here and I can delete it, and I can have all these lists. These are all different lists here that we have, and I can move these things from list to list to list, right? So we have the creator and the artist. You can see some of my inspiration here, some of my thoughts for myself, and some of the words that I wrote for myself on the creator and the artist. And it basically went from inspiration and sketches to sculpting and modeling to lighting and composition to UV texture render, etc. to completion. And this is basically a waterfall style of production. In case you don't know what that is, it's a style of production also known as Kanban, where you move a card or something from one phase to the next. So we're going to do that with the next ones. But in case you don't know what the archetypes are, and this is your first stream, this is the archetypes. So we did the artist. The outer wheel is the name. The inner wheel is what they focus on. I'm going to close Marmoset because I'm seeing that I'm getting some, what would I say? Lag. I'm getting lag from my scene here. So we're going to go ahead and close that in a second. But before that, I'll answer a couple questions. One Alex F1 from Twitch is asking, what are your thoughts on Marmoset versus Keyshot, Josh? I think that Keyshot is way faster when it comes to just making a quick scene. The bridge from Keyshot, or sorry, from Zbrush to Keyshot is incredible. It's very fast. The fact that you can bring over textures and multi-million polygonal meshes is incredible. But I think that the problem with Keyshot is its limitation, meaning it's not necessarily good at doing environmental work, and it's not necessarily something that can texture or bake. It doesn't need those, so that's why it doesn't really do that. You have a limited texture set in there. But Marmoset has come a long, long way. Part of what we're doing in Marmoset here is they've introduced basic texturing, so you can do 3D texturing, and they have libraries of materials. So if I actually click on any of these, I'll open up my library here, which is over on my other window. So if I put the library here, you also get to see layers. So not only it has materials, of which there's a library of smart materials, and which is kind of like Quixel or Substance. And then they have drag and drop materials as well. So I think if I go into the library, the library here, you'll see like these are all their smart materials. So it's a very similar setup. I realize my head is on part of this. It's a very similar setup to what Keyshot has, and you can drag and drop these on, and they also have basic materials as well. So this is very similar. The difference, and I guess the benefit and the bonus of doing it in Marmoset is that you have smart materials, which like in Quixel or like in Substance is a combination of the existing materials that use curvature maps, AO maps, normal maps to drive detail. So the textures that I actually created for this character is basically nothing, meaning this is entirely a smart material. So if I go to the layer setting, I'm going to use the main shells texture, so we can see that. And you'll see what I have here is dirt layers, patina layers, and all of these are being driven by different things. So I can turn off just the dirt, and we'll see what that looks like, for example. Kind of changes the look of it right away. Looks like something is happening. I can turn off the ivory entirely, and we'll put maybe like a steel blue machined look under there, and you can quickly see what this is. So for somebody who's saying, I like to work in Keyshot, I get that. I 100% get that. Here's the molten look, for example. So you can do all this very quickly, and you can also do some 3D baking in here. And then you do have to have textures, which means you probably want low-res geometry if you're going to do this. But in Marmoset, you can also create bake projects, which are pretty fast. I loaded 10 million polygon-sized meshes. I don't know what the right phrase to say that is. I loaded in big meshes into this program, and some of them are still or were still in there. So my file size at the end was about 1.5 gigs, but you can see that you can pretty quickly and easily play around with ideas for how to do things just like you could in Keyshot. So to answer the question quickly, Alex, it's fast, but it's not as fast as Keyshot is. I think that the quality of the render is probably better, in my opinion. I like the actual quality that you're getting, whereas I find that Keyshot often has a bit of a stale-ish product environment to it. I don't think that Marmoset really has that. So there's a lot of things that I can learn, and I'm still learning a lot about Marmoset, but it's very, very, very fast, and I'm pretty happy with it so far. Ash kind of following through. Yeah, I'm probably going to try using Unreal 5 in one of the next projects. I don't know if the Caregiver project, if I'll use this one or Marmoset or Unreal, but I'm thinking Unreal, so we'll try out that one for the next one. It's Coenzy from YouTube asked, did I use any reference images when making the model, or was it mostly from the top of my head? I had some reference images as far as style. I knew that I kind of wanted a more Art Deco-y, I don't know if that's even the right term, a more I kind of in my mind had written some stuff and had a vision in my mind of what I wanted, and it was kind of this sort of Art Deco-y, beautiful type of character where they were creating, and so there's sort of like a precision and beauty to them. So I mostly was kind of going off the top of my head, but I did do it in a very initial sketch that I don't know if I have. Let me see if I can find it really quickly. I don't know if I have it off the top of my head right now. Let's see. No, I don't. But I basically did a sketch, and I was using some reference. One of the reference pieces that I was actually using was a bonsai tree. I found that to be really, really useful. So, yeah, hopefully that's helpful. A quick question on the sound. Is the music too loud, or is the music okay for everybody? Looks like you'll have to give Marmoset a try. Yeah, I like it. Pedrug is saying it's funny how the lingo keeps changing as we get better and more powerful real-time engines. Like, what is a big mesh anymore? Especially, I think, as we get into Unreal 5 and Nanite, right? Where 10 million polygons is supposed to be nothing. Awesome. Sounds like it's great. Thank you, everybody, for being my sound check. Yeah, I think that we're in a place where polygons are not really counting as much. I think, honestly, texture size is probably going to count for more because textures are just huge. Like, at their core, they're kind of just really big, right? So, yeah, pretty interesting. But yeah, here we are. This is all the images, like I said. Feel free to check them out. We're going to move on to the next character. I am going to close Marmoset because it's making my machine chug a little bit. But if you have any more questions on the creator, let me know. And again, we'll go back to the wheel. Outer wheel is the archetypes. Inner is what they want the most. And the middle is kind of how they connect or leave a mark, or how they enact that in some ways. So what that means is we're going to move on to the next one on my Trello board here. So this is all the list of them on the left. I've kind of given them an icon or somebody that we could relate to from pop culture. And the one that we're actually going to work on next is going to be the Caregiver. Could you get this wheel? Yeah, totally. It's actually, you can just search. We'll just do it real quick. Carl Jung, J-U-N-G, or Jung, 12 archetypes. And I'm sure if you hit images, you'll find tons of these wheels. This is the one that I used. The first search, you can tell how lazy I was. But yeah, there's tons of those. If you're interested in this kind of stuff, Carl Jung has there's a lot of research on that, a lot of people talking about that, so check that out. But the first one we're actually going to do is the Caregiver. The Caregiver is a really great archetype. It's one of my favorite. Obviously, we're using Samwise Gamgee here as a classic caregiver in the relationship with him and Frodo. But you can find this stuff online, but the motto of the Caregiver is to love thy neighbor as their self. Their core desire is to protect and care for others. Their goal is to help others. Their greatest fear is selfishness and ingratitude. Their strategy is to do things for others. Their weakness is martyrdom and being exploited. Their talent is compassion and generosity. The Caregiver is also sometimes known as the saint, the altruist, the parent, the helper, and supporter. So I put a couple other things on here. Like our friend Baymax is a perfect example of a caregiver whose sole goal in Big Hero 6 is to protect Hero, right? That's basically it, to care for Hero and to protect Hero, and he becomes easily exploited in the show, in the movie, by making that his only goal, and Hero essentially turning him into a weapon, right? That is the journey of a caregiver. So my idea for what we're going to do for the caregiver is actually going to try to roll all of these 12 archetypes into one universe. So the caregiver, the innocent, the ruler, the sage, they are all going to live in the same universe of the character that we just completed, which would be the creator and the artist. So we're going to kind of springboard off of what we did last time. And so to kind of go to this, that means that they all live in this world. They live in a world where humans exist. This is can have a little bit of sci-fi element, but this is probably some sort of a deity, and so, or a god or something like that in this world. And so I liked the idea that maybe the 12 archetypes could potentially be the 12 gods, essentially. They could be a pantheon. So we're going to create a pantheon over the next year, and the first one that we did was the actual creator. The next one we're going to do is a caregiver. So I want to do something different than the creator. I want it to be similar in nature to this. Some other reference that I was looking at was, fertility goddesses and things that would be caring at their nature, maternal almost in their nature. And so I kind of want to use, or even Galileo here from Riot. This is also another big piece of inspiration for me. So I was thinking it could be interesting, rather than having a caregiver who is small and protecting individuals, is maybe a large, or caring for individuals is a large caregiver, right? And this, so maybe creating a character that's roughly at this scale here, of a giant or a colossus or a golem, who will be protecting and caring for all of the creations that the creator has made. So we're going to kind of put those two together. Ash Blossom says, I like movies that portray caregivers that can be toxic when they don't even care for themselves. Yeah, absolutely. There's so many good archetypes when you look into these. And one thing to note about the archetypes is that they're not intended to be a stereotype or a trope, meaning they're not an exact replication of a person, and they're not supposed to actually define any character as what they look like, what they sound like. It's a trait, and so any person can have any of these traits. Some of them have leaned more, like the everyman is obviously was more male, but we can diversify that very easily. So we want to do the caregiver. I think I want to do it as a large golem or a large character. I'm going to probably switch my covers up on this so that I have this for myself. But that's what we're going to start with. We're going to start with some really bad sketches in Photoshop. If you weren't here for this and the last ones, the sketches that I did were not beautiful. They're only really for myself. But if you go back and you look at the previous streams, I wish I could find them. I really wish I could find them. I don't know where they went. I'm going to look really quickly, but if I could find them, you'll see that they were actually pretty true to what we went to. So we'll get there in a minute. I'm also going to load up my screen recorder. I'm going to record some of this screen so that on next stream, if you weren't here for the full stream or you couldn't watch the whole stream, I'll give you a little recap at the beginning of what we did on the stream as far as the creation of this character, and then also for anything that I do off stream, I'll also add that to the recap so you see that at the beginning of the stream. So if you're not able to stay for the whole streams, no worries, totally understand, but the beginning is where you'll get to see those recaps every time. You can also watch them on Twitch or YouTube. Z Van Duer Art from Twitch says, you like the idea of doing a pantheon because it reminds me immediately of the primes from the Transformers lore and Greek gods and stuff like that makes sense for the archetypes. Exactly, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's sort of like a very classic pantheon, right, of where you're just kind of doing a little bit of everything. You want to encompass all of the characters and all the people that could be in this world. It doesn't necessarily, point to one person, but it's like core values, I guess, of what that person is. Also, something to note about this stuff, especially this archetype stuff, is that it's not necessarily every person or everything isn't one archetype. Often they will be multiple archetypes combined. So somebody might be the hero, the caregiver, and the explorer, right? They could be those things. Or the outlaw could be mixed with the jester and the hero. Those things could easily be combined. So every character that you see on screen is probably, every person you know is probably a combination of these, but they could be so many different combinations that it's not worth calculating. All right, so that means we are done with the creator. No more questions, it looks like. Happy to answer. There's one question which is said, could I recommend a few artists to follow for learning organic and hard surface sculpting? Chaos Masons is probably the #1 who's got a lot of stuff out there. Marco and Cedric, they're amazing. Check them out. Let's continue. All right, we're going to close this. Again, you can check it out on Insta as well, or my ArtStation. So we're going to start my screen recorder in a second. A new recording. And let's start sketching. So again, these sketches are not intended to be beautiful. These sketches are going to, frankly, they're going to be pretty ugly. They're more there for myself. They're more there for myself to know kind of roughly what I'm doing. If this was an 11 by 17 piece of paper, I'm going to be drawing very tiny, probably very small, just like I would be if I was doing it on actual paper. Right? Like I don't like to draw if I'm ideating or if I'm thumbnailing. I don't do a big piece to draw because you can get so much information and detail out of a small thing like this. So I want to go ahead and quickly come back. You know what? I bet you I probably put that in a different place. I'm realizing that it might have been somewhere else. Just more curious now at this point. Yeah, we'll find it later. All right, let's do some sketches. Now, like I was saying, I like the idea of making a big character. So we're just going to do some rough shapes. So let's say this is a ground plane. It's beautiful, right? And maybe we have like, kind of using that Galileo reference, we'll say like maybe there's like a castle or like some little homesteads kind of in the front. You know, maybe there's like a person. There's always a mountain. There's like a little mountain. And there's always like a little person here. Classic stick person, right? They always have this is a thing. I don't know why this is always in concept art, but everybody's always got a stick. And they're always looking at whatever's here. So I'm doing this for two reasons. I'm doing this both for who is this character? What do they do, right? But I'm also doing this to help me understand what the final compositions could be. Pro tip, little thing. If you're in Photoshop, if you hold down Alt and right click, you can make your brush size bigger. And if you go up and down, you can make it harder and softer. So you can really quickly, easily do that. Right click and Alt up and down, so you can do some fun things on your thing for Photoshop. So maybe in the composition, there's like, you know, a couple of these. There's like a mountain in the front. I'm trying to give some scale. Maybe the mountain would be a bad idea. Maybe we should have more people in the front. Traveling staff salesman, absolutely. Put like a classic, like little turret or something. It's like a rook. That's like some castle. And I want this character to be big. That's way too big. But like something in the way of like, if this is a house, this is like the size of the golem. I don't usually do rounder size characters, or I've noticed, so this is something that I want to try to do. It might resemble a bit of like a, I was thinking about this on my morning walk today, something like a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man in a way, or a, you know, something like that. But I like the idea of it kind of being something big. You know, and we could do some other things, but let's try some more ideas. So part of the issue that I'm already seeing right now is if I'm going to make this, and I'm going to have a month to make this, and I try to do this, I'm having some things that I'm thinking about right now. There's the obvious, which is the character itself. How am I going to make the character? You know, and then we have our big character, but we have our land, our character in the front, a castle, all that fun stuff. If I'm going to try to do a full scene, I might not want to render it in Keyshot. I might not want to render it in Marmoset. Unreal 5 might be better, so that might be something I'm going to explore. So that's something I need to kind of be aware of when I go into this, is how, you know, how big am I going to make this character? What's the kind of the point of this character? What do I really want to show? I really like the idea of like having a really tiny head, but like a big body. So let's see. We guys found some really fun inspiration before from bonsai trees. I want to see if we can find anything interesting really quick. I don't know why I've been drawn to them. They will probably be my eventual retirement hobby, but I've always found something interesting in them, and sometimes it's just the movement and the growth in them. I think that we use something like this, or this was the inspiration for one of the last things that we did. I don't know if these are really going to bring anything, but you can just see there's such cool shapes in these. So I like searching for things. We could obviously look at existing things like a Baymax and a Galileo and all kinds of other things for reference, but I don't find that they bring existing artwork. I find doesn't really bring the types of inspiration that you want, because it often is just somebody else's work. You could show the character with a lot of damage on its body, showing off how much of it gave itself to protect others. I love that idea, absolutely. And I kind of just like these round trees. Maybe there's something here where we could try foliage as I get myself into trouble. You know, let's just do a simple character in a month and make it covered in foliage. The mirror technique is an awesome idea for finding simple shapes. I agree. I know I generally want it to kind of be humanoid. Probably human at a certain point. I know some of them later I want to resemble humans. In pantheons, often gods will create gods. They're not all created by the same people, right? Or they'll be descendants of. Or there's demigods, or there's, you know, all these other kinds of things. So I think that that could be something that could be interesting to explore. I'm wondering, like, just mimicking some of these shapes here. Let's see what else we got. Keep thinking of a spider. So many arms and legs to help more people. Big body, little head. That's true. I don't want it to be super creepy. As simple as this is, I like this a lot, so I want to keep something, the roundness to it. The thing that I'm worried about with a spider is, you know, or something where it's got like lots of little things, even though it does get the idea across, it doesn't feel as welcoming. Maybe going kind of along the idea of like the golem idea, maybe it doesn't have to be the same. Doesn't need to be symmetrical, I guess what I'm trying to say. Cloud shapes might also be helpful. That's a cool idea. I like that. Let's get some cloud shapes. Okay. We're searching for the word cloud shapes. Results in some pretty interesting things. Obviously, these seem to be mostly manipulated. That's interesting. I like this one. Looks like this is maybe a painting, but I like this idea. Ooh, what if they were, like the two of you said cloud shapes at the same time? what if, just simply, like, how big is this thing? Some of the like Kronos, I believe, was supposed to be like so big that like their head was like kind of in the clouds. That could be a thing that we could explore. David says he likes the idea of Golem with craters protecting a city from an army, or Alexander the machine summoned from Final Fantasy. Yeah, exactly. Like kind of a protective thing, a caregiver that's there to give, but I don't want them to just necessarily give like in what I think people think is like the maternal aspect, but also sort of like a caregiving aspect to it of protection. When I think of caregiving, it's not just about that you have everything you need, but it's also protecting. So I kind of want to combine both of those. Now the hero is another one that is another archetype that could probably pretty easily get bunched up into this, right? So that's something I kind of want to be careful of. Is that I don't want it to necessarily just be a hero character. Kind of needs to provide some more. I kind of like the bigger, rounder, heavier shapes. It doesn't even have to have humanoid legs, but I like the idea that it would. Cheers, hello. Welcome everybody who's joining the stream. Now the question is, if it is a golem, typically golems are created by somebody or something. Right? Or is it from the earth? Kind of earth golem, or a cloud golem, or... I think we're going to have to jump into 3D soon to just kind of explore shapes, because I'm kind of losing what's going to be down here other than just like pelvis, leg. Getting into like very traditional shapes is where my brain's going, and I'm like, I don't know if that's necessarily what I want. So we'll kind of run with some of this for now, and we'll keep working. They could be created by a need. That's true. I like the idea. I think it was you who said the craters. It's a cool idea. All right, we're actually going to save it this time. We'll put it in our proper spot, and we'll call this sketches. Creator, not creator, caregiver. Cool. The golem is moon. Oh, that's a really good idea, though. I mean, you could do like a moon. It could be like sort of moon-like. Could be like, that could be some of the damage that people were talking about, That could be a thing. All right, let's get in here. All right, this is the previous one we did. I would do torso tree. You can see Johnny Boy. Maybe it's a tree torso down and it walks on its roots. We kind of got a little close to that on this one, so I want to do something that's more mobile on this one. Google White Desert. Okay, I'll check that one out soon. I'm going to initialize this because I don't need this massive file populating my, taking up my RAM. Let's go to here, make our rate 0, just a little brightness in the background, pick this, and then we don't need a tool. I feel like this is a character we probably want to start from a sphere, but it is going to be something that's going to walk. So part of me wants to just go with a humanoid base mesh and say we're going to start from that. If I start from the humanoid base mesh, I'll be fighting just stream of consciousness telling you what I'm feeling. If I start from a humanoid base mesh, I will be fighting not making it feel like a human the whole time, and that is a concern for me. If I start from a sphere, it can be more asymmetrical or easily asymmetrical, but it'll be harder to find the initial shapes and know really what the character is going to look like. It'll take me a lot longer to find the character. Decisions. You can't really go wrong either way, so I'm going to do the... I'm going to do a humanoid base mesh. So this is what we're going to start from. I think I'm going to chop these fingers off. I don't really want the fingers. We're not in the way that they're there. Yeah, take the inflate. I thought about that. You're just going to do this move to it. That's a good starting point. I think I'll probably chop these fingers off. And the face doesn't really matter. We're going to remove some of that. Actually, all of that. All right. So what we're going to do, we're going to do what you're supposed to do. Save. We're going to set up our file. So I'm going to go back into my structure, go into my right thing. I'm going to make a folder here. I'm going to call it Sculpts. I'm going to go into there, and I'm going to say Caregiver 01. And we're going. Big fluffy boy. Is this base mesh available somewhere to download? You know, that's a good question. This base mesh came from a program, an older modeling program called Silo, S-I-L-O, and it was just like a teapot or a cube or a square or a sphere that you could use. It was just in there. So it's probably online somewhere. Do you think it's good to start with some demo base character for some stylized character sculpture? I think you're asking, is it better to start with a base mesh? I think starting with a base mesh is fine. You know, that used to be a big argument I would hear a lot. But I don't really hear it that often anymore. I think probably because there's so much. It used to be, you know, oh, you're using a base mesh, that's cheating. But then all of a sudden things like Quixel and Kitbash came out, and people realized that's maybe not cheating if you're, you know, you can't really say it's cheating to to not use, you know, whatever Quixel, whatever I'm trying to. I think you're all trying to get what I'm saying here. But if you're going to use Quixel, there's definitely not cheating to use a base mesh. So don't worry about that. I like the idea of the tiny head, as you can see. I'm gonna go ahead and quickly make some poly groups here. What I can do is just hide these. Try to make sure it's a decent loop. And once it's visible, just hit Control W. That will very quickly isolate it and create a poly group. I also created this last time, which is a little backpack we made, which basically means that it has a bunch of tools that I want quick and accessible. And one of those is the grow function or the shrink function. So you can come into here. I made it T. I can hit grow, and then I can hit Control W. Excuse me. So now I have polygroups. I'm going to smooth these out to the point where they don't exist, and I'm just going to start sculpting. I think I'm going to want the pose to be down, as we were kind of looking at from my initial sketches. I like this kind of bigger, rounder, golem strength, protective, you know, often squares and triangles are what are known as like a strong shape, but I think that you can see from this that it's not. Ooh, you know what we got to look at? I'm surprised nobody said this, but power lifters. Gotta look at some power lifters here. Not like the muscly power lifters, but like this kind of power lifter. Obviously, he looks like he lost a bunch of weight there. Oh, what is the... I think he's Russian. Powerlifter. Starts with a Z. That's not how you spell it, but we're gonna... There he is. This guy's huge. Oh, he got super shredded. Just what that mean? Wrong one. I didn't know you got that ripped. Yeah, sumo wrestlers are another one. What the heck? I always remember him like this in all the World's Strongest Man competitions. Crazy. Alright, let's go back to that one reference photo we found earlier. It's perfect. This is... kind of this look. Sumo wrestlers, absolutely. Let's see. Yeah, like the mountain. Exactly, the mountain from Game of Thrones is very similar. But I'd say probably more round. But this is kind of the vibe we're going to go with on this one. So now we need to make that into this, or this into that. So we can use the inflate brush pretty easily. That will help us kind of get some of that roundness, but we're probably going to spend a lot more time today just on getting general proportions of what this thing could or will be. I definitely don't want the legs to be that long, and I'm also, before I go too crazy on this, duplicate. We'll see how this works. I'm going to undo all the changes I did on this one, so this person has a head again. That's fine. That's fine. So now I have two. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to shrink it down. Yeah, that's fine. You can remove those. This is going to be our scale reference. I find scale reference is super important. Even if you don't ever have it up, just something scale human. And then we'll put this up here. And then we'll save. Can you tell me the difference between the blob and the inflate brush? Yeah, sure, I can hit you with that real quick. Pretty quickly, the blob brush does this, right? So it creates, and you see there's sort of a rippling effect to the sculpt. That's the ripple. It does inflate while it does it, but it also kind of has a ripple effect to it. It's not actually inflating the object, whereas if I go to the inflate brush, which you'll notice, especially on the fingers, is it just inflates the object. So meaning it's taking it from the inside outward along the angle of the normals, which means directly out off of the surface, and it inflates it. Probably a little easier to see on something like this, where if I inflated this, it's just like it's getting pads on anywhere where the brush was getting having its influence. Little guy, big guy. All right, let's continue, undo all that stuff there. I really want these legs to not be crazy long. I don't want them to be super stumpy either. So we're going to have to figure out kind of a balance of this at some point. I think it will get us. This is why I wanted to use this. I don't want it to be a Baymax ripoff, so I'm trying to be conscious of some of the shapes, even though I think Baymax is such an incredibly beautiful and simple design, so effective. mostly one color. Mostly one big round shape, right? It's basically this. I want to bring more strength to it. I think that head needs to be smaller. Probably going to have to subdivide at least once to get what we want out of this. It is not liking wherever I put that, so it's trying to like smooth this all. That's fine. We'll deal with that. I think the head should be back further anyways. This is when we can get into posture too. Posture can play a huge deal in a character, especially at early points in the character. Because Baymax's posture, his design changes, obviously, from once he has his armor on, right, that's made for him. But a lot of it is just in his positioning of how he holds himself. You know, it's kind of the classic thing of like somebody who's got a bit of a belly and then they suck it in and push their chest out. It's kind of the same thing. It's all about posture. Let's get these two on the same plane, meaning I'm just going to move this little one down here, up. And I'm actually going to use the line in the bottom of Zbrush. I'm going to stand the Caregiver on there, and I'm just going to stand them on there as well. Big Hero 6 could be a good base reference. Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things I had kind of pulled out was, Baymax as an inspiration of, I think he's a brilliantly designed character who is a perfect example of a caregiver. I mean, it's basically his exact function. I think he says that's what his function is. I don't know if you could choose a more exact representation of that archetype. So it's not really important right now that I'm not focusing on anatomy. That's not really going to be a big deal for me in this character, I don't think. Since it will be more golem-like, I think we're really just kind of exploring large shapes. Getting into it. I don't think it should have big feet like that. That feels weird. I don't know if it should even have fingers. Perspective is on. It's important. It might be good. So right now this is basically our silhouette. It's effective. I think it's working. It's a little too simple, but it's kind of, more or less what we were going after here. Not as round as maybe I was hoping. But I am worried about some of that Baymax-ness coming across too much. Didn't really hit this. We're kind of more in this territory. We're getting there. What I was going to say is I think it might be helpful to give some form of a iconic silhouette to the character. The silhouette, meaning it could be that we just take these elements of the character and really push them over the top. Change these. If round is our goal, meaning round is the thing that round can mean strong just as much. It just needs to be positioned correctly. So maybe our goal is to make everything, almost everything, as round as we possibly can. I'm going to push the base mesh as far as I possibly can. What I mean by that is it's still clearly very polygonal, right? It's not, there's no detail in this. I'm going to continue like that as long as I can until I feel like I need to make it bigger. We are just about at halftime, or we are at halftime. So I'm going to grab some water real quick, do a quick break, and we'll get back to sculpting this character in 1 second. So let's play a short film. We'll do Minor Alex's. Flip a coin. Flipping NyQuil. Mine it is. All right, everybody, we're going to do a quick break. We'll be back in 5 minutes. All right, we're back, everyone. Done some subtle proportion adjustments here, and I think I am getting pretty close. I'm going to make this head more prominent, I think. Right now I'm mostly deciding what material it's going to be made out of. Like, what is this character made out of? Are they earth, rock, stone, clouds, trees? Probably a little bit of everything. If you want to keep a dense mesh or may not change after ZBrush, what do you suggest? I think I would just suggest that you wait as long as possible to make your final base mesh. You can ZBrush and that can be your final base mesh. You just need to kind of push it a little further before you decide to do ZRemesh. You can always project. That's something I would say is don't be afraid of learning. If you don't know it, learn it, but don't be afraid of the pipeline of learning how to go back and forth and adjust meshes and all that kind of stuff. It's really important. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck in a workflow where you don't know how to get stuff out of there. Kind of like this little weird cap thing we created. All right, I think I'm happy with moving forward with this basic proportion. So what I'm going to do is, I like to do this quite a bit, but if you've never seen this before, if you subdivide, I like to take these base meshes really far. They're really square, right? They look like low poly models because they are. This only has 927 or 28 points. So not very many points in this character, not very many polygons on this character. If I just hit divide, 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 it becomes very round. Now, that's not necessarily bad for this character. It might work out better than I thought for this character. Excuse me. But I do lose some of the shape right away. And I worked, not hard, but I worked hard enough, right, to get that shape. So what I'm going to do on the first one, I'm going to turn off this SMT button. When you go to geometry, next to divide SMT, turn this off, hit divide, nothing will happen, or at least it seems like nothing will happen. What it's actually doing is it's adding those polygons, but it's not smoothing the geometry, right? Not smoothing geometry at all. What it's actually doing is it's just adding them in between. Right, so it's not a big deal. All we got to do is we just take this button, we turn it off, and then if we turn it on again, it will add that smooth. That way, we're not losing all of the work that we did. Now I'm going to start looking for design lines. So basically what I'm doing is very similar to what I did here. You know, we got some large shapes. We've kind of followed some of these shapes. I realize now that this might be looking this direction, meaning I drew it in poor perspective, but maybe it's actually going this way. Looking down on top of them. I kind of like this idea. I don't know, this is just random, but like what if there was like little things around them? I don't know why, but let's just play with that idea very quickly. I like trying to get the whole idea of a character in as fast as I possibly can, because I think it shows you a lot and it helps you get there, like it helps you get to the end faster if you know what you're actually going for. This also might not be an idea that really works well for this character, but it might be an idea that works well for other characters. I don't know what these would be, but we'll figure it out. Maybe they don't have to all be spheres. Maybe they can be like little shapes or something. We'll run with that. That will probably go away, but we can play with it. So anyways, I was saying I'm going to use it like sketching. So just like how I was kind of sketching shapes in here to figure out something, we're going to do the same thing here, meaning this isn't really going to be our final mesh. It's just going to be something that, you know, we explore on. And it's okay, a sketch, an important thing to note about a sketch is it's not the final product. It's intended to be messy. It's intended to get the point across, right? It's intended to be something that evokes a feeling. So I'm not going to be searching for perfection here. That's a very key thing, I think, to this. Also, some of my reference being fertility, fertility uh, goddesses and deities. It might be good to get some more feminine shapes and curves in here too, so it's a bit more a mix of both. I think that to me feels better in general too. Anybody have some good resolutions for this year? For me, it was one of my big professional resolutions is to just keep moving on Archetype and make sure I finish them all. Finish more work. It's a big personal push for myself. Oh, you started my workshop course on the Silver Surfer one. Very cool, Esteban. Hope you're liking it. It's still a lot of the ways that I work. It's pretty old now. I think it's 5+ years old, more than that. But it's definitely a very similar way to that I work now. I use Keyshot in that one, but no reason to not. Hoping to go freelance full-time this year, create and finish more work. That's awesome, Rob. I hope that happens for you. I am going to try to bring in some of the form language from the other character, since they live in the same world. It's not going to be sci-fi. I don't want it to necessarily be purely sci-fi. I don't want this to be like an Eternals celestial exactly. Obviously, it's similar in some ways, but it's not exactly what I want. So I'm trying to be conscious of avoiding some things while still capturing the idea. And then I think after this character, I was thinking about this a lot over the break. Which one are you going to start on? Which one are you going to end on? Which one do you do next? I think I want to do some that are more, demigods, or maybe were created by the creator, or just something that's more human. So we'll be getting into more human characters later in the year. Still have some things that I'm personally learning with rap and texture XYZ and some workflow that I'm experimenting with on the side. So I'm not ready to jump into those types of characters yet, but they are characters I want to get into. just finished Maddie's digital sculpture. That's awesome. Oh, you like the approach to the Silver Surfer? Yeah, my approach to that was very much like you're saying, he gets his powers from Galactus anyways. Silver Surfer does, so there's no reason, and he basically is completely reinvented, so I wanted to experiment with that as a, if he was robotic, basically. To me, it made sense. It was interesting, though, reading comments, because I think it got posted on Reddit, or it got picked up by a couple of other people at a certain point, and a lot of people really hated that idea. It's always really interesting. Like some people really disliked the idea that I was like, he could be a robot, and people were like, no, he needs to be a silver naked dude riding a surfboard through space. That's realism. Be careful of those comments. They can be a place. Maddie's incredible. Yeah, she's great. She was actually my Zbrush teacher when I was at Noman. So it would have been in 2008, probably 2009. Maddie was my teacher, and actually had her online too. Trying to get some of that ambiguous look here, but this is getting a little too breast-like. I'm not sure. Good vibes. Thank you very much. All right, let's see what we can do here, huh? Let's get into some of these shapes. Not so sure about some of these, but we'll make them work. We'll figure it out. Again, this is the sketch. Part of me wants to just chisel this plane off. It's kind of interesting, though. Maybe if we mimic or mirror the shapes from those idols, I could find something interesting in them that's not what they are. I think as we get to the more like refined elements of this, we'll also start understanding a little bit more about the form language I'm going to go with and some of the rhythms that are going to happen within this character. They're probably going to be larger and simpler. But I don't have like a shape in mind right now. You have all her old books. Yeah, she's incredible, man. She's got such a long history of teaching Zbrush. And has great work, obviously, too. Definitely very anatomical shapes right now, which I'm okay with. I think it'll help connect the viewer with what's supposed to be being portrayed. Will I carry the same design language across them as well into the next couple of ones? Generally, yeah. I think some of them are going to be much different. So, for example, like the outlaw will probably have elements of it. Um, I'm unsure of what I'll do with the hero. I think that I could do 10. As I was kind of playing around with the idea of, doing a pantheon. Not all pantheons have 12. Some have way more than 12. Some have way less than 12. Right? So I could do like the pantheon and then like a hero of the story or of a world. That was something I was exploring. But some of them will have, similar aesthetics to them, but some of them will definitely not. Something to anchor them all together. Yeah, I want them to all feel like they could live and do live in the same universe. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm kind of feeling like I'm just noodling. And I need to push something. I'm liking the direction I'm going, which is good. Which means I should save. Probably do something more interesting with the feet, but right now I don't really have that in mind. The proportions feel like they could go longer, or they could go shorter. I think probably shorter. Keeps it more round. The longer they get, like I was going to think of like, oh, if I do them long, then it gets kind of spindly and long. And now that it's getting rounder, I'm kind of liking these a little more than I did before. And if it wasn't like just a... we talk about craters. Maybe this is like part of the way they protect. I don't know, maybe there's these, maybe some of these are on them. That could be interesting. Maybe they pull them off, maybe they follow them, maybe they float, maybe they have control over them. Maybe they don't have control over them, maybe they're attracted to them. I'm just kind of trying to think about ideas. Maybe, what else? A million things you could do, right? think I do want to create some form of a shape on the top, though. I always like doing this where the top kind of has this shape. I need to get some more geometry in here. So it is about time to subdivide anyways. So let's just go ahead and do it. Where the top has like a shape that kind of goes like this. This is an area that I see people don't often look at their designs from the top or the bottom, like looking up or looking down. I find personally that it's very helpful to look at things from directions in which you normally don't look at them. What I'm trying to get at here is I basically want to mimic the trapezius shape going into the shape that kind of is here already. It's kind of in here. It's being mimicked. And it's part of what often a big character has. And so I'm trying to see if I can find a way to do that. But I want to do it this way. Let's make it too soft. I think it adds some strength to it. So often undo, 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 redo all of that and say, did I make it better? Did I make it worse? Look at it from different angles. It's really important. I think that helps. I'm going to keep that, whatever this shape is going to be. And again, this character is going to be massive, so if this is a human, should be a huge character. And that means like the creator that we made is only like yay big. So this might be the biggest of them all. I'm not sure. They could all be titans. They could all be celestials. I really like the design of celestials in Eternals though. I guess they were shown in Guardians. But I think they're cool looking. So I think I'm probably not going to have too many, like I have one right now, a couple right here where they're like hard edges. I don't know if that's really going to be this character. I kind of like this one. If the theme and the motif is round, let's make the whole, there should be no straight lines. I think that's what I'm kind of saying, is let's make no straight lines in this character. So even a simple line that was going to be straight, we'll break it, we'll make it round. If there was going to be something in the middle that was going to have a line, we find a way to make that round. I'll make it a part of another shape. Getting a bit of a flat plane there. Sometimes I'll just draw lines, like I'm doing now, all over a character and see if any of them work. And sometimes they work great and I keep them, and sometimes they don't work at all and I delete them. If it was smaller, I would consider doing something almost like this. But I think that is a little too over the top. It makes it feel small. Doing something really large scale is actually really difficult because if you go too far, it just doesn't work. I don't know if it's going to be made out of skin. Right now it's obviously kind of looking like skin. Some of that is the color, some of that is just the way I'm sculpting it. And maybe we'll see. Pretend it's made out of red rock for now. Let's take, just had an idea that maybe they would be like growths. They've been like ripped off of the character.
How do you want to do that?
Sometimes like this, I'll just make a pattern. Be like, does that work? Nope. No, it doesn't. I mean, it works, but it's like, is that what I want? In this case, the answer is no. Does that mirror in here? Yeah. Ooh, that created a weird little Saturn ring that I like quite a bit, though. This one's going for good.
Is it Thursday yet?
Oh, looks like I lost connection for a little bit. Seems like everything's fine. Let me know if anything's broken. Try to fix it. let's go ahead and just get this thing going. Let's get a plane in here. Not that I will actually use this plane or necessarily sculpt on this plane or for anything of real value, but this is a cube and not a plane also. Let's go and get this in there. This is going to kind of help us just kind of generally, set up scale, proportion. If I later want to use houses or anything that I want to build in this area, it can be a nice way to do that. I can, try to figure out if I did purchase a bunch of those scans, so I could do stuff with the scans. I could figure out a bunch of stuff, but starting to kind of just really say, you know what? I like to think about the end product, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What's the end product? What's it going to look like? What's it going to feel like? So now I could take this, I could mask it, unmask it if I wanted to. Like I was showing in the beginning, like if I wanted to start making some initial scale things, I could. There we go. We got a little mountain set now. Or at least the beginning of one. If we're gonna have fingers, they need to be like really thick fingers. I don't think we should have 5. So we're probably gonna cut that down. I don't know, chat, what are we thinking so far? I think it's kind of hitting, the goals of what we were getting towards. Right now it just feels like a big person. Kind of like that. Maybe just like... I think just the shape needs to be defined more. I think I like that more. So what I often do, I usually work for about 2 to 4 hours at a time, and then I take a break. So I'm getting close to hitting that break point. And part of what the break point is that after a while, when you've been working on something, you can't really see what's better and what's worse. So I have a save here from a little while ago, not too long ago, but just before I put that little mountain thing in. And this is after I put the mountain in. And I'll go back and forth, and I'll just see which one I like more. So I'm going to load up the 3 versions that I've had. This one's obviously a little... this is where we started. Almost where we started. So we went from here to here today. So the question, I guess, is, do we like this one or this proportion? We'll call this left and right. Basically, they're the same. It's just the head proportion. Do we like them? Which one do we like more? I think I kind of like this one. Left or right? Short one. Somebody says short. I like how the one on the right plays into the stuff on top. So one person saying left, one person saying right. I think I'm probably going to go with this one. Yeah. I'm going on the right. Just from this to this. I just like the design a little bit more. Fits into the chest more. It's kind of giving that sense of power a little bit more. I think it'll give me more room to play with design here for the head. Am I going to paint this? I will be painting this. Each of the archetype, everything in the archetype series, I guess, is going to be, textured and rendered. So eventually this will have a color. It will have a background. It will be in an environment. Kind of adding some noise to this surface so that it's not just a thing. a plane with a mound on it. It's going to be here. It should serve a purpose. It's an important thing I like to keep in mind is if you have stuff in your scene or if you're doing things, they should serve a purpose. I think we've got a lot of good flow. We don't have a lot of good. I don't really know what it's going to be made of yet. That's going to be the big thing I think I'm going to have to figure out. What's it made of? What environment could it be in? I'm starting to come around to these floating things around it. I think that's kind of working. Kind of like that being a little smaller. So we're trying to focus on the flow, trying to keep it round, trying to keep the rhythms moving as much as I can. That's interesting, maybe pulling this out. Pulling it in. Definitely feels more alien this way. And more like... They both feel alien. Kind of like it being a smaller head. I said that from the very beginning, but I kind of do like the head being a little tinier. Also making the shoulders bigger and doing that. I like that quite a bit. That way there's a big shape and a small shape. In this one, many of the shapes are kind of the same size, and that's kind of a big design rule that you want to try to not do, meaning roughly this shape is kind of, roughly the same size as this shape, which is the same as this shape, as roughly the same size as this form, and roughly the same size as the head. And that makes it all kind of feel boring. So starting, that's part of why you see me pushing and stretching the shape so that now, the head shape is smaller than this shape, and this shape is bigger than this shape, and this is bigger, or these are the same, but this is smaller. And so that's a lot of what I'm trying to do here is play with the proportions, the rhythm, the structure. That's all the most important stuff that you can do with a character like this. It really is. I think that maybe the legs could be, their proportion could be adjusted. My concern with making them too small, let's make them, let's just shrink them really fast and see what that looks like. If I make them too short, I think it doesn't look interesting, or it looks weird. If I make them too long, it might be too tall feeling. So that does get some of the scale more of what I was expecting. So maybe there's an in-between there. It's kind of more of that Eternals vibe we were kind of talking about. I think it being of that size also really helps sell the kind of the deity aspect. If the body is so far away, the head is so far away, Let's even copy this over. It means you need to go down. Let's copy this, clone. Oh, I just saved everybody's eardrums. Let's append this. Alright, so we kind of have this as compared to this. I think I like the scale a lot more. The scale, the size, just in general of this, I like it a lot more. So let's save it. People on Twitch, hello, welcome to the stream. We're actually almost done. We got about 3 minutes left in the stream, so I'm just kind of buttoning this up. Get it as done as quickly as to a good stopping point as fast as I can. But we'll be resuming next week. Probably working on this character for 4 to 5 weeks as we get back into the flow of the new year. I'm excited. I'm already liking this one quite a bit. I'm excited to finish it. that means is feel free to join me back every week from 10 to noon Pacific time on Archetype, where we're going to be working on this character for probably, like I said, 4 to 5 weeks. And you can follow along. You'll get to see basically the whole, more or less the whole process of how I'm going to go through this character. If you're just joining the stream or hadn't seen before, I just finished this character last week. I finished it last night. This is the creator, so we're doing 12 different characters from each of the archetypes. So the creator and the artist is what we finished here. That's what you see right now. You can also check that out on my Instagram, and feel free to find that there. And then now we are moving into the Caregiver. So the Caregiver is going to be one of the next one we're going to go, and then we're going to have 10 more characters to do after this. And they're all going to live in the same world. And right now we're basically going to create a pantheon. So we have our creator, we have our caregiver, protector, and we're going to go through all the rest of them until we get to the end. And that's going to be a year-long project, so feel free to step in and say hi on the stream as often as you want. You'll also be able to view these videos afterwards on YouTube and on Twitch. So if you don't have the time or you're not able to make it here, that is not a problem. You can watch them on our YouTube or our Twitch channel afterwards. And I'm excited. I'm excited to finish this character. I'm excited to be back with everybody streaming. Noman is going to have a ton of really cool stuff this year, streaming-wise, so feel free to pop by, follow, like, subscribe us, to get those notifications to know what we're doing, or follow us on socials and you'll see a bunch of cool stuff. So Archetype every Tuesday from 10 to noon Pacific time. Also Tuesday evenings we have Creature Corner hosted by Jared Krzyzewski, amazing character and creature designer. He hosts that from 8 to 10 Pacific time tonight, so that'll also be on this channel. And then tomorrow I'm going to be on Art Jam, which is another show kind of like this where we'll be sculpting and creating stuff. That is going to be from 4 to 6 p.m. on Wednesdays. But there's going to be a ton of other stuff, events, really cool events getting queued up for you all this year. But we're all very excited. So thank you, everybody. Welcome if you've never been here before. And I'm going to actually cut us out on that note. So check back next week. We'll see what the progress is. Otherwise, have a wonderful rest of your day and hopefully have a happy start of your new year. Bye, everybody.